and welcome. Violin, Shakespeare, a basement science lab, the legacy poets, and a mother who taught a socio-political appreciation for world cultures through a Pan-African lens, a mother who taught to ask the important questions: what's the lie? What's the truth? Who are you? These are the things that shaped the growing up years of Detroit native Semaj Brown, our guest tonight. Marriage brought Semaj from Detroit to Flint a while ago, where she has worked in community health and the arts, trying to make us all feel better, to share the secrets of well-being, trying to make us all do better. She has written in poetry and prose, of veracities and vegetables for entertainment and enlightenment. She is poet and public thought leader, guiding us all to what we may not have considered on our own. Her reading tonight in our conversation is Mother Ocean, The Making of a New Tribe, from her 2019 book, Bleeding Fire, Tap the Eternal Spring of Regenerative Light, described as an odyssey in African-American history and culture, part memoir, part social commentary, part magical realism. I met Semaj last summer quite by accident, and isn't that how the most interesting relationships usually begin? I'm delighted that she's with us this evening to discuss all kinds of things that give us life and lead us to well-being. So good evening, and welcome to an evening with Flint Poet Laureate Semaj Brown. I'm Deb Conrad, pastor of Woodside Church. My pronouns are she and her. Woodside is hosting tonight's event, and I'm so happy to gather with you all for what I hope will be inspired and inspiring conversation. My experience of conversation with Semaj has been enjoyable, fraught, and righteous. Perhaps inspiring is usually all those things. To begin, in just a minute, Semaj will perform her work, Mother Ocean, Making of a New Tribe. She and I will discuss it in a bit, and then we'll open it to you all for questions. I would be remiss not also to introduce our behind-the-scenes guy, Adam Schmidt, who will do all things technical, making sure we have what we need to do what we intend to do. Thank you, Adam. It is best if you jot your questions in the chat, please, and Adam and I will watch for them. If you know folks who want to watch, you can direct them to semajbrown.com or Woodside Church of Flint on Facebook, where we are streaming tonight, both those places. We want everyone to have this opportunity. I'm also going to be the clock watcher tonight, and we've committed to 90 minutes. I always like to honor folks' time and appreciate that you've carved this hour and a half to share in a poetic meandering this evening. Also, please let me say that Woodside offers this program at no cost, as with all our programs, part of our work to create a just world. If you're inclined to make a contribution to support this and other programs, you can find a link on our website to do that. If Woodside is new to you, I invite you to peruse our website and find out more about us, woodsidechurch.net. I hope you will find something that moves you. All that said, there is no more reason to delay. Semaj, thank you for being with us. I hand it to you.
Thank you so much, Deb. And thank you to everyone who is here, everyone who registered. We're very, very grateful. And also those people who are watching the streaming. I won't get started until I see my image so that I know everyone can see my image as well. I'll need to be able to see that before I get started. There I am. Well, thank you
so
everyone.
much, Semaj. Thank you. Thank you. I've heard you read before, and it is stunning every time. Every time. Thank you. Before we go any further, I want to put this on the screen for you. This is the book that this poem is printed in, Bleeding Fire, and is available at Amazon. And perhaps we can get a local bookstore to carry it as well. But for the moment, this is where you can find it. So I know you'll want to take a look at that. We have some time for conversation now, and I really appreciate that Semaj is willing to engage us a little bit. So I have some questions prepared, and I know you'll have questions too. So we'll try to get to all of that. Semaj, can you hear me? Are you with me?
I am with you, and I can hear you, and I feel all the people, and I thank all the people for being here. I feel your energy. This is a new medium for me because, you know, I'm a stage person. And so it took me some time to figure out how I could do this in a box. But
well, you did it beautifully.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So I learned years ago from a biblical scholar that I admired that poet and prophet are in Hebrew actually the same word. And this is, of course, part of the reason that Woodside has started reading poetry alongside scripture in our worship services. But I wonder how it might feel to you to have someone consider you to be a prophet, to call you a prophet.
Well, people have said this.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable with it. I have a friend, she told me I was a guru. Another, if you're listening. And I suppose I'm most comfortable with griot, which is a West African term for the person that's the keeper of the stories and the history and the truth. I feel that name I feel comfortable with. There are many, many griots, and I would be part of that tradition. But you can call me anything you care to. That's good. That's good. Different cultures have different names.
Sure. I've heard the word griot before, but I've not heard it explained just that way. So thank you for that. I will add it to my vocabulary. Early in the soliloquy of Mother Ocean, she reflects on her daughters that their memory was stolen, and you offer a litany of things that they don't remember. Among them, the gold of Benin, the Moorish Spain, the military brilliance of Queen Nzinga. None of these things ever pop up in my news feed during Black History Month, which of course is this month.
Yes.
But I wonder what you might like to say about Black History Month, its purposes, its successes, its failures, its offenses.
Well, when Carter G. Woodson, and I don't know the date, but anyone that isn't familiar with Carter G. Woodson, he's a great historian and great historian and writer. And he was the person that initiated Black History Week. It was a struggle to have a week to recognize the contributions of African people in the diaspora that were here in the United States. And so then it transformed into a month. And so I'm thankful for that. However, he's an ancestor now. When they develop these wonderful things, it's up to us to take it to another level. I don't think we need to be stuck in a month. I'm not saying eradicate the month. What I'm saying is to take it and expand it. Who told you or anyone that our history has to be a month? We're programmed, and we don't have to be. So at this point, right now, today, when February ends, don't stop. Don't stop researching. Don't stop teaching the children. Don't stop teaching yourself, because we are always learning. I am a student of the universe. I am always in study. So we should always be in study of ourselves and not just concentrated into 1 month. So when February ends, just continue. We don't need institutions to tell us. We can do it among us ourselves. You can do it in our churches. We can just continue. And many people do. That has been my entire life, learning about the history of African people in the diaspora. And that's really learning world history. This segmentation is really, these are false constructs. If you're learning African history and you're learning Black history, however you want to term it, you're learning human history.
I'm taking notes while we talk. Thank you. So you write that water is spirit and spirit remembers, and then you repeat it again. Water is spirit and spirit remembers. And I wonder if you would say more about what that means to you, about what spirit means to you.
And so there's been several times in my life where I have not been a poet, where I stopped writing poetry because I didn't have anything to say. So we're in a time now, it's just part of the culture, where everybody believes they have something to say, something worthwhile. And so we support that. I don't think that's true. I was glad I took the time out not to write poetry, not to give voice, so I could listen. And in that listening, that's the spirit, what was spoken to me. But in order to hear it, you have to be quiet. You can't be talking all the time and having all the answers and knowing this and knowing that. It's, humility is part of spirit, so that you can live into the void of yourself. This beautiful black space, and be just floating. And then that spirit you will hear.
You find that's a learned skill, listening, floating in the spirit?
I suppose so, because at this time in the culture right now, because probably it's emphasized because of the new technology. Everyone has something to say. Everyone's an expert. Everyone knows a lot about everything. And so I remember I saw Jane Cortez. She's a poet, one of my favorite poets. And after I saw her perform at the Detroit Institute of Arts, she was with a band and she was dynamic in the things that she was saying. I stopped writing. I just stopped. I said, I don't really have anything to say. I don't really know anything right now. I was young. And I became a teacher. My science background, so I was teaching science. And I started going into the homes and developing programs for what we called back then children at risk, children with tethers on, children who were children that had been brutalized by this system that brutalizes. And I started learning. I started learning about systems, how this happened, what does it mean? And after years of being an educator and working what they call on the front lines and being in line with my students and my people, then I had something to say. I learned something. I knew something. It was coming out of my marrow. So, and I listened. So everybody has to do it their own way. That's my experience. Sometimes you just have to sit in the void. Sometimes you have to listen. You just have to know how to just.
So early on, you mentioned, you name, in the same breath, you name sea monsters and New World rapists. My daughters came to me, you said, fodder for sea monsters and New World rapists, and descended to maritime grave. This is an odd pairing for me. And I know, of course, odd pairing is a wonderfully poetic device, but one is mythical and one is very real. And so then I'm wondering, what are sea monsters to you? How do these things align? Who are the sea monsters?
Well, they could be anything that you want them to be. It's kind of like abstract art. You bring to it what you have to interpret it. But we were talking about this horrible thing that happened. And so that's a line from one of my other poems. I just borrowed it. But they're on the sea, the transatlantic slave trade. Even when you think about that term, trade, you trade people, you know. We've become, it's a euphemism. Middle passage is a euphemism. How can you call it a middle passage when you think about these words? So the line is the sea monsters and New World rapists. Maybe they're one and the same. Because if they're on the ocean, they're on the sea, They're riding on the sea, all this blood and gore. Could they be anything else but monsters? They crawled out of the sea and became the new world rapist. So they can all be one and the same.
You, in the line that follows, you describe their deaths asphyxiated on the horror of what was yet to come. And I think that that's a past and perhaps present acknowledgement, but I wonder if it's also something of a future reality too. Is this kind of asphyxiation inevitable? What do you see that's yet to come, yet to be?
I see a lot of things. I wrote a piece called Epoch, something called War. And in that futuristic piece, they were in an interstitial plasma space, and they were discussing Earth. And they had found remnants that it really did exist because it was no more. So I see Earth extinguishing itself. I also see Earth saving itself. We have choices to make. As long as we continue to go in the direction that we're in, there are certain things that are inevitable. There are certain laws that cannot be crossed. And so if you continue to destroy and kill and pilfer, what you do to the ocean, you do to yourself. So we will extinguish ourselves. Now, the good-minded people that are here, that are kind of waking up, but they're waking up too slowly. they're kind of, oh my goodness, this is what's happening. Well, now that you woke, you understand a little bit more. You can't fall back to sleep. You can. And if you do, the earth will extinguish itself. Because everything that we need to survive is here and being destroyed. And so when they destroy and they marginalize and they kill African Americans, they do all kinds of things to Native people and to themselves, poor people, they're actually extinguishing themselves as well. They can't escape it. It's a circuitous. It's going to, as in the hood wisdom, what goes around comes around. You can't escape it. We're in this thing together. You can fly off to the moon. You can't escape it.
So the opposite of destruction, you talk about wholeness. And the little river girl said, how long did it take you to heal your daughters, to make them whole? And the answer, in part, that you write is that they were always whole, created whole, even with captured memory, even with lynching, you write, and other devastating harms. They were always whole. Wholeness for me is a spiritual well-being, but also it's a material one. How people of faith work and pray for the wholeness of all people, all animals, all the earth itself. So it's a material state and also a spiritual state, and our spiritual work on behalf of one another. But wholeness is also then a legal state. When someone has been harmed, the law says that they have a right to be made whole, which I understand to mean they have a right to have back what was stolen or what was broken, to have it returned or repaired. Wholeness then is restoration. So when I hear Mother Ocean's reply, they were always whole, I hear it referring to a spiritual state, but I wonder how this restoration or wholeness in a physical or material sense is more of a reparations question. And I wonder if you could say something about that.
Sure. Mother Ocean doesn't make a distinction on wholeness. She doesn't separate the spiritual from the physical. It's a wholeness. It made me think about a man that beats his wife continuously. Mm-hmm. Every night he brutalizes her, and then she is sent for anger management. Who's broken in that picture? Is she broken? Is she unwhole? Or is it the man that's doing the merciless beating? So one kills unarmed people. Who's broken? You drop bombs on people. Who's broken? I think the lens needs to be, there's a taken off from African American people and other people as being unhealed and needing to heal from this. During the pandemic, when everything was shut down in March and April and May, they looked at the coral reefs of the ocean. They had been bleached. It looked like they were dead. They weren't producing oxygen and they had no color. As soon as the pandemic came and there was no traffic, no pollution, there was less of everything, they started to regenerate. What was broken? Were the coral reefs broken? Or was all of the toxins and poisons? Is that the broken part? Mm. When Tulsa was attacked and people were mercilessly killed and neighborhoods were destroyed, that neighborhood was destroyed, African Americans rebuilt. And then the highway system, they decided to run through all the African American neighborhoods, destroying the economies. And we continue to rebuild. And this continues to happen. Who is sick here? Who needs to be made whole? There's nothing wrong with me. Everyone has personal development that they must do. But when we're looking at this systemically, from a systemic point of view, to have industries prop up everywhere about the healing of the African American woman and how we have to heal. How can you heal if you're constantly being assaulted? How can that happen? It can't. It's not us that need to be healed. It's the people who are broken, something's wrong with them, that they would engage in this kind of system of destruction, persistent over hundreds of years, not just with African Americans, but all over the world. That's something wrong there.
So America built on stolen land and stolen labor, stolen people. People stolen from their homes, but people from whom something was also stolen. As I understand, as I think of it.
Let's say, what's the last word? What's the last sentence you said? The last part, just the very last.
From their lands, but people from whom something substantial was stolen also.
Yes.
So what needs to be returned for wholeness for the folks from whom something was stolen and who were in fact themselves stolen?
Number one, first thing, leave us alone. Get your foot off my neck. That's what I'm saying. Number one. And then we can start talking about everything that needs to be repaid. But number one, that's why I go to the example of the man beating the woman. We can't talk about anything else while you're still dropping bombs on us and talking crazy talk like, well, what should we do to help you? And while I drop another bomb on you.
Cool. Right. So
that's what I call just mixed up deflection speak. It has to be addressed. You are killing us. And then you want to talk to us about what you can do for us while you go behind and then kill us again. That has to be dealt with. That has to be recognized. The killing needs to stop. When I say killing, I'm not just talking about murders. That's bad enough. I'm talking about policy that kills. Creating policy that creates poverty, that subjugates people for a lifetime of all types of horrible things, disease, taking the money out of the educational systems to create a school to prison pipeline, incarcerate masses of people. How can you, and then this is like the tobacco industry. Okay, we knew this was cancerous. We addicted everybody to tobacco, but we're good guys. We're going to donate. We set up a fund over here for college scholarships. Stop the foolishness. I'm not stupid.
Amen. Amen.
I'm completely aware of the duplicity of these kinds of this of what they do and how they speak. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was a girl, a young woman, a girl, my mother and I would sit in front of the television set and she would deconstruct everything from the Little Rascals to Tarzan to the Brady Bunch. And she asked me 3 questions. What's the lie in here? What does this have to do with you? And what is the truth? And so I am able to look at things and see the duplicity that is inherent. It's so threaded into language and conversation and how we think about subjects. It's very difficult to parse it out. And that's why I'm so grateful for this type of discourse, so we can look at it.
I appreciate your patience with us and your willingness to talk us through some of these things and shed light.
Well, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Jackie Shelton Green, who is North Carolina's poet laureate, or was at one time,
yes,
praised your work for your ability to sing back the dead on the brink of madness, which I just love. What a gift to have that, to be able to sing back.
It was so beautiful when she said that. I said, oh, I was grateful.
A resurrection theme, which is another theme of wholeness and restorative being. And I just wanted to throw that out there as praise to you again, from another poet. And of course, that's not the first time you've heard that, but it just struck me and I loved it and I wanted to say it out loud. So thank you.
So beautiful.
Back from the brink of madness.
Yes. The book is Bleeding Fire, and the subtext is Tap the Eternal Spring of Regenerative Light. I really do believe there is an eternal spring of regenerative light and that we can tap into it. And everyone has worth, everyone has value. And tapping into that eternal spring of regenerative light is so, so important. And there's all types of ways to tap into it, to create communities that support one another, that are confirming.
That sounds like a faith narrative in your life. And you talk about call it grit, call it Holy Ghost, call it ancestral fire, call it Black Girl Magic. And so this regenerative light and singing back the dead, this is the resurrection theme. It sounds like a faith statement for you.
Well, I walk in faith. I would have to, because I'm the descendants of my ancestors. I have a purpose to fulfill while I'm here. Just think everything that they went through. And I got to survive.
Right.
Well, it's for a reason. And so I have to work hard every day, whether I'm working in literacy for children, because there's a 1-to-1 correlation between being illiterate and going to prison.
Right. Right. A little bit different tone here. I just wonder, because anytime there's not COVID, I try to find a beach once a year, because the ocean itself to me is restorative, the sights and the smells and the sounds. Yes. And I wondered, before this poem came from you, What was your relationship to the ocean, and how has it changed by this experience, this birthing, this work?
Well, this work was inspired by the African American women that were photographed by Jerry Talaferro at the Flint Institute of Arts. And so that's why, so since they inspired this work, the ocean is feminine. They were all women. They were the women of the new tribe. Now, also in West African culture, classical spirituality, one of the deities is Yemen Yah and Mami Waters, which is over the ocean, which is over the water, which I found to be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This piece came to me as a rumbling, as a feeling. I knew I hadn't written a poem of this magnitude for quite some time. And I called up my cousin Linda. I said, Linda, a poem is coming. She said, what do you mean, a poem? She's funny. And she said, a poem like the way you used to write? I said, yes, a poem like that. She said, what is it about? I said, I see skulls. I see the ocean. I think it's our story. She said, okay, just jot it down. Do what you do. I'll call you back in 2 hours. I'll check on you. And the reason why she said that is because I didn't want to write this piece and end up at the bottom of the ocean in grief.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to survive the writing. So I prayed before I went to sleep, and that I would be able to not feel all of this misery and have it in my body, my physical body. And so when I went to sleep, when I woke up the next day, I was very much like a scribe, and I just wrote it down, and I didn't suffer until later. It was only later, after the booklet had been made, and Amanda Thomason, who is the greatest graphic artist, I'll say, in the world, works with me and has been working with me for over 10 years. She created the picture. When I saw the picture for the booklet, that's when I felt everything. And I was safe, and I grieved, and I cried. And it's been a wonderful experience to deliver this work. And so the women are oceans. To come back to your question, I am an ocean. I am a walking, talking river. My blood flows, and I am contained in a suitcase of flesh and bone. So water is spirit, and spirit remembers. If we only knew and understood the reason why we go to the river. We go to the river to see ourselves, to return to who we are, to try to see, because our memories have been stolen, eviscerated. We just don't know how divine we could be, how enlightened we could be. We're kind of on a reptilian level, crawling around trying to find ourselves, but we are the walking, talking rivers, the oceans.
I'm sorry.
I answered your question.
Well, you gave me stuff to write down, so thanks for that. Well, because I was also remembering that the ocean in Greek and Roman mythology, of course, is Poseidon or Neptune. So all male images, and so this is a whole different way of looking at ocean, and so I'm struck by the difference between European and African one more time in understanding how the world works.
Yes.
And thank you for that. I have one more question, and then I want to just be able to open it up to whoever's lingering here and wants to talk about some stuff, if that's okay with you.
Of course, of course.
So Jackie Shelton Green, refers to this part of your to this part of your work as middle passage resistance. And Woodside Church says that we intend to be a force of resistance. Our tagline is, we are joyfully defiant for the sake of a just world. So resistance is part of how we understand ourselves as a congregation against empire, against exploitation, and all that it entails. And I wonder if there are some particular forms of resistance that you advocate more than others. Talk about resistance.
Well, there are, for me, no. I just think it's important wherever you, again, my cousin Linda says, I'm standing in my kitchen, so that you stand wherever you are. Standing in itself is resistance. Not giving in to suicide is resistance. Breathing, organizing, writing, marching the earth forward, all forms of resistance, forming thought networks, resistance, getting involved in political systems, resistance, direct disruption is resistance. This form that we are in right now is a form of resistance. Everyone that tuned in, thank you for resisting. You made a choice. You said, I'm going to go listen to what Semaj is saying because whatever your reasons were, that's resistance. You could have been doing anything else. You could have been feeding your mind with something else, but you decided to feed your mind with the questions that Deb created to ask me about this piece of Mother Ocean. That is resistance, because this is another form. We have terrible educational systems. We know this, right?
Yeah.
So this is an alternative. What we're doing is doing alternative education, alternative questioning and probing and tearing apart the fiber, that which has been so melded together, teasing it apart so we can see where we are, what has happened, and so we can go forward.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Certainly.
you. I just want to throw in a little plug. Woodside has a Sunday morning reading group that tries to read provocative works about social justice. And in a week or so, we're going to be starting our next book, which is Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Mm-hmm.
So that happens on Zoom on Sunday mornings. If you're interested in that, let us know and we'll get a book in your hands and we'll all read together. So
That's wonderful.
we're looking for ways to
That's resistance.
further the resistance. That's right. That's right.
Beautiful.
I don't know how many folks are still here. It looks like at least a few dozen. And if you have questions that you would like us to raise, then can you type it in the chat and let us lift those up for Semaj.
And I want to say thank you again, Deb, to you and to the great work you're doing and all the beautiful people at Woodside Church. And thank you for tuning in. And thank you to Amanda and to her husband, James, the Thomasons, for putting together, helping me put together a fabulous website that this is being streamed on. Thank you, Amanda. And I have so many other people to thank, so I won't start that.
Well, go ahead and do that while we
I want to say hello to my husband, Dr. James Brown.
Hello, Dr. Brown.
He's my love of my life and my partner in doing all this great work. And so he's a real healer and just a real God man. And I want to say thank you to so many people that are supporting me and have been supporting me. I'm afraid to start naming names, but I love you all. Some of you are here. Some of you will see yourself on the website. That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So someone has commented, Sonia, you may know Sonia Pouncey.
Yes.
I may have said that wrong. She writes, this reminds me of something Toni Morrison said, if you can only be tall because others are standing on their knees, something is wrong with you. What kind of person are you? And then she comments, I'm an ocean, flowing, resisting, remembering. And she says, thank you, Semaj.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much. She's a poet herself. in her own right and an engineer doing fabulous work right now. And I don't know if Sonny, you want me to say all these things. Okay, but you know me. She's doing she's I want to say a constructional engineer. Anyway, she's working so hard with the buildings to get the filtering systems together for COVID. Yeah,
Nice.
so that's what she's doing. So
Well,
she'll be right after this is over with.
Sananda Corrado says she loves how you collapse living and non-living binaries, which and then asks this: can you talk about the dynamic between movement and stillness, from recovery of memory to discovery, how we reclaim our creativity as a new tribe? What's the importance of our history to who we become?
Well, hi Sananda, that's my good professor friend.
Okay, hi.
And buddy, you know, we do a lot together. I forgot the question though. Now that I'm thinking, can I talk about how history is significant to going forward?
You want to? Yes. You mean read the question again, or you just want to riff?
Just, I want to make sure I have that last part of the question.
What is the importance of our history to who we become? And she says, hi, sis.
Well, our history is so important. And you know, when you don't have a history, you know what I tell people to do? Make it up.
Okay.
Make it up. Who do you want to be? Make it up. There was a young boy I was teaching at a school, and his mother was a prostitute. And he was I think he's about 8th grade, 7th grade. And he came to me and said, I don't know how to be a Black man. There's nobody in my life to model myself after. So I went to the social worker. We took this boy and we had him make up a Black man. And we physically cut it out, construction, articles, pasted, made a collage of the human being he wants to become. So we can create our histories. If we don't know our histories, or we want to correct our histories, we create alternative histories for us. And that's what we must do.
Okay. You talk about this litany of women who are the women of a new tribe, and it's you name several people.
Yes.
Nina Simone, Oprah, Edith Spencer, Dr. Jemison, Gloria House, etc., Harriet Tubman. This book was published before the presidential primaries were even done, much less the election. And I wonder now about our new vice president, Kamala Harris. What would you like to say to? I'm assuming she's watching tonight. So what would you like to say to her, or about her as also part of this?
Women of a new tribe.
Yes.
You know, we're all in this tribe. Whether we recognize it or not, we're in it. That's part of the awakening. We're all here. We're all in this new tribe. You may not want to be a member, but if you're living in 2021, and if you're listening to this, you are part of this tribe.
Okay. All right. Do you have any advice, writes Amy Diaz, do you have any advice for people wanting to develop their spirituality or connection to the universe?
Well, there are a lot of, you know, so what I will say about this is that you are the universe. Just like I said, I was the ocean. I think, see, there's been a separation of and a new reality at some point came in. I don't know if we call it Western civilization or what. It's a way you think. So when we talk about how do I connect to the universe, you're really talking about how do you connect to yourself? You are the universe. That's the first thing. Understanding that you are the ocean. You are a walking, talking, breathing river. You are the universe. You're the microcosm of the macrocosm. In extent, what is alive in the microcosm is alive in the larger, in the macrocosm. So if you look at the human body and you look at how we function, you'll see universe all over us. Look at the pupil, look at your eye. You see the pupil is the core, and then you see another circle, and then there's another circle. Is this just like a big earth sitting right here? That's the way the earth is. You know, you have your core and your earth, and then you have your mantle, and then you have your crust, and you have two earths right here. You are the universe. It's just that it's not taught this way, so you don't know it. So you can't embrace yourself that way. But we're going to teach this differently, you know, so that people can understand.
One of my favorite Hebrew words is Ruach, which means spirit. We talk about it as the Spirit of God, but it also means breath and wind and life. And when I think about the world being created by the breath of God, however you imagine God, whatever you imagine God to be, that there's this universal breath that we breathe, this universal spirit that we share. And it makes me feel connected to other folks, regardless of what, you know, religious dogma folks may claim, to think that we're all part of this universal spirit or universal breath.
One organism that destroys itself. I said one organism, one giant organism, one living thing that destroys itself. So an organism that is bent on self, one large organism, we're all connected, that's bent on self-destruction. And the other part of the organism that's living is able to live and try to stop this type of self-destruction from killing the organism. Because air goes the earth, we all go. It's one organism. We can pretend and we can read these books that have been canonized that it's not oneness. The unity, that's all there is. That's it.
Right. So there's another question here. There's a refrain of standing in the poem, and it mentions a lot of people, the people in the boardroom, people in the people on the corners. I remember people in shelters, people at serving as waitresses and clerks and various other folks in all kinds of areas of life. And the question is, can you talk more about how we stand together, how we can reconnect and stand together? I'm seeing a theme through the questions, by the way, of wanting to create and empower community here. So go.
How do we stand together? It takes some. It takes a little courage, a little grace. You know, I was talking to Erica Britton. She was talking to me about grace, and then later I was talking to Liddell Lewis, and Liddell Lewis, Dr. Liddell Lewis, said to me, "Semaj, you really helped me the other day." I said, "I did. What happened?" She said, "Something you said." So we were talking about, I said, in organizations, you have all these different personalities, and you have people who are really hurt, who have been very damaged by their circumstance, by the system. Okay. And so they haven't had a lot of training. They haven't had practice in moving through that. And so you might see someone who actually lifts up an ink pen as a work, and they're so excited. I did this, and they want a lot of praise for doing this. And we have other people on the front line, but they just lifted the pen. And so people are annoyed with them. They're like, "What? You didn't do anything. You just lifted a pen." And so what I say to that, because that happens all the time, I said, well, I just tell the person, "I'm so proud of you. You lifted that pen so well. Nobody lifted that pen like you lifted that pen. I mean, you are the greatest pen lifter," because we don't know what this person has gone through to make them able to lift the pen. So we have to, I think, be more We have to embrace and be more generous with our heart. And that's when we build community.
So you talk about grace. You say an anointed, amazing grace sieve where gray matter that matters lives. Now talk about grace related then.
So what has happened with African American women is that our brains are incredible, just like the poem said. What's incredible about them is Western psychology has a word for it. We're able to disassociate. We're able to keep it, as the sisters say, keep it moving. Keep it moving. We're able to disassociate. We're able to categorize faith from fear. And so once you're able to do that, and everything isn't fear, hope from horror, and everything isn't horror, and you can look at the hope and you embrace the hope, you wrap yourself in it so you can continue to build and grow. That is a magnificent skill. Everyone cannot do that. I think this skill has been developed over hundreds of years and passed down to Black women.
I'll buy that. I personally am very thankful for Black women these days who seem to be doing their damnedest to save us from ourselves. We're on a train to a bad place here, and Black women are showing us one more time what's possible. So
because they have that skill, and we call it Black girl magic. We gave it a wonderful name, but it's beyond that. It's being able to disassociate and to keep on going.
There's kind of a bittersweetness to that you have to disassociate to be able to keep on going.
You have to. That's called survival.
Right.
It's called you have to survive. So that's why we're here, because there had to be some type of survival technique that evolved culturally, and we have it. That doesn't mean we don't hurt. That doesn't mean any of that, but that means that we do have that survival technique. And when we get together as sisters, that regenerative light, it kicks in. It's very, it's infinity. And the more we connect to our original selves, the more we understand that we are the ocean, we are the walking, talking rivers.
Sananda says also transcendence. So fit that into the picture, please. Is that related to dissociating or to?
Yes. So transcendence is when you disassociate, or when you're able to focus in on the hope part, on the fear from faith, the faith part triumph. You're able to be triumphant. You transcend. You go to another level. And I don't mean hierarchical. These are levels that are spherical. You expand.
Okay. I'm glancing at continuing to glance at the comments and questions as we go here.
Yes.
Michelle wrote, wonderful example of making your own history. The story of the young Black student whom you led to make a cutout of the Black man that he wanted to be.
Yes.
I was referencing that was a little bit ago. Jamie wrote, listening and learning from you tonight re-energizes me, challenges me, pushes me as I, a white woman, raise a son in this world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here.
I am just so thrilled to have you and they, and it's been a terrific evening. Other folks with questions that you'd like to add to the comments? We have a few more minutes if we want it. I'm going to ask one.
I want to thank, before I forget, I want to thank, I want to say I'm a member of the Pierians, which is an art organization here in Flint of most of African American women. They do amazing things.
Okay.
So I want to give a shout out to them. And I also want to, of course, give a shout out to my Zeta sisters. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And the name of my chapter here in Flint is Zeta Beta Zeta. And I want to thank those that are having, what are they? They're having viewing sessions. And thank you so much.
Right.
Yes. And thank you, Zetas.
Okay. I want to ask one more question while we wait to see if other folks want to weigh in.
Okay.
You have a riff on black hair in this poem. And I've heard black hair described in a lot of ways, but never the ways that you describe it. Gravity defying made sense to me and made me chuckle a little bit, if that's not irreverent to say out loud. But when you were saying it out loud and illustrating gravity defying, it entertained me one more time. But you said legacy washed, and that seemed to claim something completely other. And I wondered if you'd say just a little bit about legacy washed.
Sure, I'll tell you a story that will help illustrate it. In New Orleans, 1876, a law was passed, and it was called the it's spelled Tignon, but it's pronounced, because it's French, it's pronounced Tichon bill. Well, that was a bill because the African women were wearing their hair and braiding it and leaving it out the way I have mine. And the European men, the French and the Spanish, there's a lot of mixture there, were very attracted to them. And so they passed a bill so there would be less mixing, and the white women would not feel threatened by African American female beauty, that they had to cover their hair. So the Black women could no longer wear their hair out, and they have to wear Tignon, Tichon. So what the sisters did is they used their Black girl magic and they started wrapping these elaborate wraps. They wrapped, and they were Africa anyway, gailies and beautiful wraps, and they would adorn them with all types of, I'm a little adorned today. They would adorn them. That's part of the culture of being adorned, of knowing who you are. And so you put things to you, press things to you. And they were even more beautiful. And so it didn't have the effect that the white women wanted. But can you imagine? It continues to this very day in corporate America and all over, where Black women are assaulted because of the way their hair grows out of their head naturally. So much so that we have been relegated to straightening and perming our hair. Now, you can straighten and perm your hair. This is your choice, but you should not have to be made to feel, in order to hold a corporate job or any job, you must do this. So that has been part of the oppression of African American women, is to control and dictate their very hair, how they wear their hair, to this day. To this very day.
It seems to be in the public commentary far more often than it should.
It really is. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. We have a couple more comments. Someone remembers that law in Louisiana and says we are fighting for the Crown Act to this day. And someone says, hello, CT78 classmates, so proud of you. Thanks for sharing your talent. And Nelda says, Semaj, once again, you've mesmerized me by your talent and knowledge. This has been a wonderful session.
So, you have no idea to know these people are here. I love all of them. And you look so good to me. Those are my classmates. Our colors were green and white, and we are just so close. And I thank you all for being here. And Nelda, I love you. Thank you.
I thank you too. I'm so thankful to you, Semaj, and for all the folks that have joined us. Semaj, I appreciate your wisdom and your perspective always. Those of you who are still watching, you can find more of Semaj's works on her website, semajbrown.com, and a recording of tonight's event will remain on her website and on Woodside's Facebook page. So help yourself and share it with your friends. I thank you. It's a delight to be with you all tonight. Semaj, I offer you the last word, a blessing, a direction, a marching order, whatever you would like to give us. The last word is yours.
Well, I would like to say thank you, Deb, again, for and the Woodside for hosting this. This has been absolutely wonderful. I thank all the people for tuning in, all the people that have helped me throughout and believe in this type of work. The list is too long. I'll just say one name, Pam Purefoy. Thank you so much. Going forward, I think people want to feel, how do we go forward? Just as we are. Think about what you can do next, how you can expand the breadth of your existence. Make yourself big. Have you ever seen a blowfish and they make themselves expand? Expand yourself. I don't mean gain weight like I've done. I'm talking about expanding your spirit. Be the ocean that you are. You are the ocean. Expand into it. That is your birthright. It is your legacy. And thank you. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. I'm going to read the comments. I didn't get a chance to read the comments. How beautiful. Let's see.